The twin suns of Velyara Prime cast golden light across the royal city. Towers made of crystal metal glowed softly, and banners of silver drifted in the warm air. In the center stood the grand palace, where thousands of nobles and visitors gathered to see the one they called the Star Princess. Her name was Lyris Valen. She was the daughter of Emperor Kael Valen, heir to the Sapphire Throne and known across 100 worlds for her beauty and calm spirit. When she walked through the grand halls, even the most powerful bowed their heads in silent awe. But behind her quiet smile, Lyris carried a heavy loneliness. From childhood, she was told she was perfect. Every word, every step, every look had to reflect the image of royalty. People admired her not for who she was, but for what she represented. Countless suitors from alien empires brought gifts, rare gems, starships, or promises of alliances. Yet none of it touched her heart. To her, it all felt like a cage built from admiration. On the day of a great diplomatic meeting, representatives from Earth arrived on Velyara Prime. Humans were a young species in the galactic community, known more for courage than wealth. Lyris watched their arrival from a balcony. Most looked nervous as they entered the glittering halls filled with alien faces, but one man among them seemed strangely calm. He was tall, with a pilot's jacket slightly worn from use and eyes that carried both strength and kindness. His name was Captain Eli Grant. Later that day, Lyris met him formally in the council chamber. The humans had brought an artifact to present as a gesture of friendship, a crystal from Earth's moon, shaped and polished by hand. When the ceremony ended, Lyris thanked the delegation. Most of them bowed deeply, but Eli simply nodded. He spoke softly, without fancy words. "It's an honor, Your Highness," he said. "But the gift's nothing compared to your hospitality." His voice carried a calm sincerity that felt different from the polished compliments she heard every day. That evening, as the human delegation prepared to leave, an accident happened. One of the floating transport crafts lost control near the landing platform. The safety field flickered and a glowing piece of machinery broke loose. Without thinking, Eli dashed forward, shielding Lyris from the falling debris. They both fell hard onto the smooth floor, but she was unharmed. Guards rushed in, pointing their weapons, but Lyris stopped them immediately. She looked down at the human who had risked himself for her. His arm was slightly injured, yet he smiled faintly. "Guess I was in the right place," he said. In that brief moment, something shifted in her heart. She had been protected countless times by armored guards and drones, yet this act felt different. He had moved not from duty, but from simple human instinct. Over the next few days, while the Earth team remained in the palace for medical checks, Lyris found excuses to visit the recovery chamber. At first, she asked about his health. Then she began asking about his world, about Earth, its oceans, its winds, and its people. Eli told her about the blue skies of his home, about music and laughter, and about how humans fought through their struggles with hope instead of certainty. He spoke with honesty, not trying to impress her. Sometimes he even joked lightly, which startled her at first. Few dared to speak casually to the princess, but somehow his words didn't offend her, they comforted her. One afternoon, as they walked through the royal garden filled with glowing flowers, Lyris asked him, "Do humans ever feel tired of fighting for everything? Your world seems full of pain and loss." Eli thought for a moment. "We do," he said. "But maybe that's what makes life matter. When things are hard, you learn what's truly worth keeping." His answer stayed with her. That night, she sat by the window of her room, staring at the stars. She wondered how someone from a distant, fragile planet could carry such quiet strength. In his eyes, she saw none of the greed or pride she had grown used to. He didn't look at her as a prize or symbol. He looked at her as a person. Soon, rumors began to flow through the palace. Servants whispered that the princess spent time with a human pilot. Some nobles laughed behind closed doors, calling it a foolish fascination. Others warned that it could damage the royal image. Her advisor, Lord Rhinell, spoke carefully during council. "Your Highness," he said, "humans are admirable in courage, but they are simple. They do not understand our ways. You risk much for curiosity." Lyris replied softly, "Perhaps it is our ways that need understanding." The advisor fell silent. A few days later, she found Eli again, standing near the starship hangar. He was gazing up at the night sky, lost in thought. When she approached, he bowed slightly. "I hope I'm not causing trouble for you," he said quietly. "Your people don't seem to like that we talk." You have caused no trouble, she answered. Only questions I did not know I had. She looked at him for a long moment. Why did you save me that day? You could have been hurt. He shrugged lightly. It just felt right. You don't think in moments like that. You just act, even for a stranger? She asked. For anyone, he said, smiling gently. We humans. We're not perfect, but when someone's in danger, we move. It's what we do. Something warm filled her chest. She wanted to tell him how rare such honesty was among her kind, but she couldn't find the words. Instead, they stood silently, watching a meteor shower streak across the sky. The air shimmered with quiet wonder. The next day, the Emperor called a private meeting. He had heard the whispers. My daughter, he said sternly, your behavior draws attention. You must remember who you are. Curiosity is harmless, but affection, especially toward an outsider, can shake empires. Lyris bowed her head. I understand, Father, she said, though her heart ached. When she left the chamber, she walked through the palace garden alone. Every step echoed her thoughts. She remembered Eli's words about courage, about finding what mattered. For years, she had done only what others expected. For the first time, she wondered what she truly wanted. That night, she found Eli in the quiet courtyard where the fountains glowed with soft light. He was preparing to leave for his ship the next morning. The stars reflected in his eyes as he turned to her. I'll miss these skies, he said. They look different from Earth's, but they remind me that we're all under the same universe. You're leaving, she said, her voice trembling slightly. He nodded. Orders from the council. They think my stay's too long. Silence hung between them. Then she asked softly, if you could stay, would you? He smiled faintly. If I did, I'd probably cause you more trouble. She shook her head. You already have, she said, and he looked surprised. Then she added, but it's the kind I don't wish to end. He hesitated, unsure what to say. She stepped closer, her silver eyes shining under the starlight. When I look at you, I see something I've never seen before, she whispered. A heart that acts without promise of reward. Eli took a quiet breath. And when I look at you, he said softly, I see someone who wants to be free. Their words faded into the night wind. Neither reached out, yet something unspoken connected them, something gentle but strong. For Lyris, it was the first time someone had looked at her not as a princess, but as a person. For Eli, it was the first time someone had truly listened to his heart. As the distant bells of the palace marked midnight, she realized she could no longer hide from what she felt. The galaxy might mock her choice, the council might disapprove, and her father might be disappointed. But deep inside, she knew one truth. Of all who desired her crown, her beauty, or her name, only one desired nothing at all. And that made all the difference. The morning light broke softly over the towers of Viewership Prime. The human ship stood ready for departure, its silver wings glowing in the sun. Princess Lyris watched from her balcony, her hands pressed against the cool glass. Somewhere inside that ship was Eli Grant, the man whose words still echoed in her heart. She wanted to call out to him, to tell him to stay, but she knew the court's eyes were everywhere. When the ship rose into the sky, she felt a quiet emptiness. For the first time, the palace seemed colder. The laughter of the nobles in the halls sounded hollow. She walked through the corridors and felt as if the walls themselves whispered of duty, of rules, of everything she no longer wished to obey. Days passed, but she could not forget the human who had changed her view of the universe. She thought about his courage, his simple kindness, and the way he looked at her without fear. But the peace did not last long. Rumors spread faster than light. Courtiers whispered that the princess had feelings for a human, and the Council of Houses demanded a formal hearing to protect royal dignity. When her father, Emperor Kale, summoned her to the throne hall, she knew what awaited. The chamber was filled with high lords and alien ambassadors, their shining armor reflecting the blue light of the court. The emperor's voice was calm but sharp. Lyris, you have always been loyal to our people, but there are whispers that bring shame to our name. Tell me, is it true that you have formed a personal bond with this human pilot? Lyris stood tall, her silver gown flowing like moonlight. Father, I have spoken with him, yes. He has shown me honesty and bravery unlike anything I have seen here. The room filled with murmurs. One noble shouted, he is a primitive. His kind barely reach the stars. She turned her head toward the voice. Yet his heart reaches further than most of you ever will. Her words silenced the hall for a moment, but they also deepened her danger. The council decided that Captain Eli Grant must be summoned back to Velyara Prime for questioning. Within 2 days, his ship returned under escort. When he entered the hall, he stood humbly, surrounded by armored guards. He didn't look afraid, only serious. The Emperor looked down from the throne. "Human, did you seek to win the affection of my daughter for your own gain?" Eli shook his head slowly. "No, Your Majesty. I did nothing but speak to her. If she found meaning in that, then I am honored, but I never asked for it." His calm voice carried through the hall. Even the guards seemed uncertain. The nobles demanded punishment, but before anyone could speak further, Lyra stepped forward and said clearly, "Enough." Every eye turned to her. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly at her sides. "Everyone desires me," she said. "They bring treasures, ships, and promises, but none of them care who I am inside. They see a symbol, not a person. This human saw me. He spoke to me as if I mattered, not because of my crown, but because I am alive." The hall erupted in gasps and whispers. Her father's expression hardened, but he did not interrupt. She continued, her voice rising. "So yes, I choose him. Not because of his race or his world, but because of his heart." The councillors protested loudly. One shouted that such words were madness. Another said it was forbidden by ancient law. Yet the Emperor raised his hand and silence fell. He looked at Eli with thoughtful eyes. "If you believe yourself worthy, human, then prove it. There is a test, a challenge that measures not power but the soul." Eli bowed slightly. "Name it." "The trial of Shira," the Emperor said. "A journey through the desert storms. A child of Velyara was lost there yesterday when a shuttle crashed. Bring the child back before dawn or perish in the storm. If you return, you may speak again to my daughter." Lyris's heart pounded. "Father, it's too dangerous." But Eli interrupted gently. "It's all right, Princess. If this is what I must do, then I'll do it." That night, as the desert winds began to rise, Eli climbed into a small glider craft. The skies turned orange and red, and lightning flickered across the sand. Lyra stood on the balcony, watching the ship disappear into the storm. She pressed her hands together, whispering a silent prayer. Hours passed. The storm grew worse. Reports came in that sensors had lost his signal. The court began to murmur again, some saying the human was gone, others saying it was fate. Lyris refused to believe it. She waited at the palace gates long after midnight, the rain of dust covering her gown. Then, as dawn began to color the sky with pale light, a shadow appeared in the distance. Guards ran forward and the crowd gasped. A broken hovercraft came gliding across the sand, its engines barely alive. Eli stepped out, carrying a small Velyaran child wrapped in his jacket. His steps were weak, but his eyes were steady. He handed the child gently to the medics and then fell to one knee, exhausted. Lyris ran to him, not caring who saw. She knelt beside him, her eyes full of tears. "You came back," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "I said I would." The Emperor approached slowly. The crowd fell silent. He looked at the human who had defied death itself to save one of his people. For a long time, no one spoke. Then the Emperor said quietly, "You have shown more honor than many who wear crowns. You have my respect." He turned to his daughter. "And you, Lyris, have chosen with your heart, not with pride. Perhaps that is what our people need to remember." The councillors lowered their heads. None dared to object further. Eli was treated for his wounds, and for the first time in the history of Velyara Prime, a human was welcomed into the royal circle. Days later, when the two stood again beneath the twin suns, Lyris looked at him and said softly, "The stars are brighter today." Eli smiled. "Maybe because you're not looking at them alone anymore." They walked together through the palace garden where they had first talked weeks ago. The flowers glowed softly and the air carried a sweet scent. Around them, servants watched in quiet wonder. Some still didn't understand, but none could deny what they saw, the bond between two hearts from worlds apart. As evening came, Lyris turned to him. "Do you regret coming back?" she asked. "Not for a second," he said. "You gave me a reason to keep going. And you gave me a reason to break free," she replied. The stars above began to shimmer, reflecting off the palace domes. For the first time in many years, the people of Velyara saw their princess laugh freely. Her smile reached farther than the sun's, and the man beside her felt like the luckiest soul in the universe. Their story spread across worlds, a tale of a human who proved that courage and love were stronger than pride and power. And whenever someone in the galaxy spoke of Princess Lyris Valen, they no longer called her the Star Princess. They called her something far simpler, far truer, the princess who chose with her heart